That would be my fault. But thank you, fine. John. All right. Well, up next we have John and Stephen here from Esri, and so I'll let you two take it away. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let me do introductions here and explanations. So I'm John Sherrard. I'm the one of the GIS solution engineers based out of the Olympia office, though I actually live and work out of Portland, Oregon area. And so I would have to characterize most of us solution engineers in the Olympia office. We're kind of generalists, though we do have some certain specialties as individuals. Like I tend to do a lot of transportation and land records type stuff. But if you've been an Esri customer for any length of time, you know that our technology reaches into many different areas of many different industries. And so when we run into these situations on a topic that we can't cover as generalists out of the Olympia office, we run to experts in particular industries. And so that's where Stephen comes into this presentation here today. As I reached out to him because I knew he works in this space and has a long history in it. And so I previously had seen the presentation he'd done. I thought it might be a good fit for folks in our region. So this is his presentation. I'm just basically mooching off his knowledge. So with that, I'll pass it to Stephen.
All right. Well, I'm very happy to be here. And actually, I'll tell you a secret that I'm actually at the Infrastructure Management GIS conference in Palm Springs right now. So I'm actually doing a conference presentation from another conference. So it's my first time ever having to do that. But I'm happy to do it. I'm excited to to show about AEC and project delivery and digital twins and where we are now and where we think things are going. So the idea here is that, just really to educate on what's possible. So you can actually substitute the AEC space for the owner-operator space or the government space. It's really showing how to align the technology to be able to help with projects, because in reality, everything comes down to projects. And as GIS professionals, pretty much most of the work we do is for someone else. So I'm going to try and demonstrate for you how this alignment goes. So I have some slides here to go through. So what we're going to look at is sort of the anatomy of a project, the roles that everyone plays in there, the teams, the deliverables, the types of phases that we go through, and the role of the GIS professional in there, what our tools look like and how those align. And then we're going to get into, the digital twin strategies. I'll show you a little bit about GeoBIM, which came out earlier this month, which I think is going to transform a lot of the way that we look at these major projects. Then we're going to look a little bit at digital delivery, digital twin, project delivery, digital twin, and the operations. And then we'll hint a little bit on, the bigger pictures, the smart assets, geo-enabled systems, and smart cities. So I think with that, I'll start to dive into it. So we all know as GIS professionals that we have work that's traditionally done by the GIS professional. We know we do our cartography, our mapping and our visualization, our analysis and modeling. Those are all things that we typically do. But what we've seen in the last several years is this expansion of GIS into these other areas of planning and designing a project, of building and construction, and then the turnover into the operations and maintenance portions of it. So what we're actually doing is expanding it so much so that we provide this tremendous foundation for digital twins. So what we're going to do first is talk a little bit about what AEC is. A lot of people hear the term and they don't really know what it is. AEC are really, architectural, engineering, and construction firms that help owner-operators with major projects. In reality, for the most part, AEC firms don't have projects. They have clients and they support those clients' projects. These AEC firms have GIS professionals inside that use the geospatial systems and workflows and integrations to help manage and deliver projects, and to share this relevant content with all of the project teams and stakeholders, which might be a wider array than you would think. So I made up this Acme Engineering. I used my Wile E. Coyote hair. So Acme Engineering, and I said inside of here we have design services, construction services, environmental, all these different siloed services that take place typically in engineering firms. And then at the bottom there, we have geospatial services, and that's where we come in, right? So as a GIS professional, what do? We typically support these other industries within our own company, within that engineering company. To be able to help with the projects, to help with our strip maps that we make, our cartography, our analysis that needs to take place. But if we look at it, what really takes place is our AEC firm, Acme Engineering, we have a list of clients that we have. And I made up these clients and these projects for the most part. And so we could say, well, we work with Adams County Sewer District. And Adams County Sewer District has 3 major projects going on: pump station, pump system upgrade, sewer and storm separation, SCADA integration. They can work for an electric utility doing substation or solar and wind or transmission hardening. They could work for, at the same time, a different team on a gas transmission network doing, a major gas pipeline or a compressor station upgrade. They can also be in vertical construction, with skyscraper properties doing the Vision Towers project, or something on a campus to add, more buildings. Or, a lot of times they can be doing Department of Transportation work. So, a highway interchange or an airport construction project. So if you look at this overall, we look at this from the geospatial services standpoint, saying, okay, we have all these clients, we have all these projects, we need to be able to determine how we can best use our GIS qualities to help this project succeed, which will help our AEC firm succeed, which helps the owner-operator succeed. And then in the end, everybody's happy. So if we look at this further out, we want to look at the entire life cycle of an asset. And I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One, because when we think about these major projects, and these projects could be, millions of dollars or hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and they can take years to do. But in reality, that
I'll send a text to him. Oops.
All right, sorry about that. One second here. Let me share my sound out. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right. You know, these are the perils of working from a hotel room. I apologize for that, but I'm back here. I actually turned my MiFi on in case I got to do a rapid changeover. Yeah, so like I was saying, the project is about 10% of the life cycle, and oh no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, my screen is actually frozen here. So John, why don't you talk for a couple of minutes and let me get this reset up here, okay?
Okay.
the perils of a hotel room.
Right. Yeah, we had at previous presentation this morning, there were 4 of us in a panel, and the guy leading the panel had a power outage at his house.
Okay.
Just at the last minute. So we had to restart that whole thing too.
All right, how are we looking now? Okay.
Looks good here.
All right, excellent. Let me see if we can move on here. All right, perfect. So I was saying that the cost element of this, most of it takes place in the project part, and they recoup over long periods of time, and the cost to maintain the project gets much lower year over year. So if we look at what we're doing here inside of the AEC firm, the GIS professionals, we leverage the information to provide context and constraints throughout those beginning phases of the project, the planning, permitting, design, and construction. When it gets turned over to the owner operator, they use GIS information to plan and manage asset portfolios, and they want to use the integration of the GIS, the CAD, and the BIM to more accurately represent these built environments. And the BIM and GIS together offer the opportunity to transform both project delivery and the operations together. And it leads to better, more efficient outcomes. So we look at this as a partnership. Like I said, the AEC firms they don't own projects, they have projects for clients. So if we look at this throughout the life cycle phases here, on the owner operator side, they do a master plan and determine whether they need a project or not. They go into regulatory and permitting, into preliminary design. At this point, we're heavy into the GIS, starting to build our BIM data out. Once it gets designed, it goes into pre-construction and construction. We're leveraging all of that information as we move along, and then we hand it back over to the owner operator for them to provide that service, to do their monitoring, enforcement, revenue generation, and then the whole thing starts over. So it's really this coupling of the two sides together. But when we look at this, we look at where ArcGIS is being leveraged in some of these major projects. And there's all kinds of different teams. So you could have public officials, you can have your asset managers and operations managers, you can have your BIM technicians, you can have your wetlands agents and your planners. Everyone has the ability to leverage the information from the project to help with the insight of what's taking place, to make sure that all the rules are being followed, it's being constructed as it's supposed to in the schedule, and then when it gets turned over, that it's operating and performing as it's supposed to. So this next slide, this I see this as sort of the most important slide in my deck here. And what I want you to think about as I go through this is how would you apply GIS technology through each one of these different teams and deliverables throughout the life cycle of a project. So if we look at the beginning, we know at the beginning there's heavy GIS in there where we do our site selection and analysis, our demographics. The result comes out in this master plan report. From there, there's a determination that the project needs to move forward. Then it goes into regulatory and permitting. Now think about all the GIS that takes place there. You have your zoning, your wetlands, your public hearings. You're going for your building permits and that part of it. At the same time, you're gathering your land survey information, your existing topo, your reality capture, into your preliminary design. And now you're getting heavier into it. You're doing your constructability reviews. You have your teams out there saying this is where we think it's going to be, and then they go out and they define encroachments and look for threatened and endangered species habitats, culturally sensitive areas, to be able to have to adjust the project as it needs to go. And you can, and as I'm talking about this, you can see that these are all GIS functions that go along in a project, all different teams that are doing this, but it's happening across the project. Another very important part is stakeholder management, to be able to do your public outreach so that the public understands what's going on, doing your community hearings, acquiring the real estate that may have to take place. If you could imagine, say, going across a project that's 200 miles long, you might cross 50,000 parcels. On those 50,000 parcels, you need to maintain your access rights for every single one of those. Well, what's the best way to do that? Absolutely through GIS. You could say, at this property where we're going to be working tomorrow, let's look into the system. Oh, it's Mr. Jones. What does Mr. Jones want us to do? They want us to call 24 hours ahead. Here's the combination to the gate key. They want to make sure that you don't let the cattle out, and that if you chop down any trees, that you pile it up in this corner. And believe it or not, this is the most important part of a project, to be able to keep the stakeholders happy. Because essentially, if the stakeholders are not happy, the homeowners that you have to interfere with their lives, then your project could be in serious trouble. So as we move forward through the detailed design, that's where our BIM comes in. That's where our civil design comes in. That's where we're putting together our schedules and documenting what our revisions are and our layouts. And we go into our pre-construction, where we're doing our site prep and our procurement. And then understanding, of course, that absolutely throughout this, we have our safety teams and our environmental compliance teams to make sure that we are maintaining our sustainable, constructible project as we move forward. Now, we're going to move into the construction phase. Now, everything that we did up to this point got us to construction, but not all of that data necessarily is as important in the construction phase, because we've already checked off all these boxes. And now we have a different set of stakeholders added to our situation. So when we do our physical constructions, we have our daily reports taking place. We have our project controls team to monitor our costs, our RFI, our variances, do our QA, QC, make sure that the money out is equal to the work coming in. And at the end of the construction phase, we do our restoration and remediation to make sure that at the end of the project, everything looks at least as good as it did at the beginning of the project. So now we're at the end of sort of the AEC phase, and now we have to do documentation and turnover. So we could have, upwards of 2-3 million documents at this point that took place on this project. And now we have to hand over all the financials, the audits, the CAD data, the BIM data, the GIS data, all of our PDFs, our Excel spreadsheets, and they all feed back. At that point, you're also creating your as-built topo and your final reality capture to then build your operations and maintenance digital twin. And that'll help you with your asset management, and then into some of what we're looking at for our future technology of predictive analysis, tying our IoT network sensors in there to help the monitoring and enforcement of that asset throughout the rest of that 90% of its life cycle. So inside of there, that's where you're able to get your revenue and your value back from it, through your work orders of maintaining it, how to staff it, what the governance looks like. And then at some point you look at your rebuild or decommissioning, and that whole thing starts over again. So it's a big circle. So like I said, this is laying everything out, and you could see how important GIS is there. So what I did is I turned it a different way to say, this is what the project phases look like. So we have our master planning, our design, and they're somewhat sequential, but they have a great deal of overlap that takes place. And you could see that GIS has a part inside of all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it completely on its side now and look at our phases of our planning and permitting. And we know there's heavy GIS during that, and then what we're looking at is when it goes into design and construction, the GIS use, goes down a bit. During turnover, of course, we're back up, and operations and maintenance, it goes back down. So what does that show us? That shows us areas of GIS growth opportunities, which just so happen to line up with the digital twin philosophy. So the bottom line of that is if we can become stronger in the design design twin area, the project delivery twin area, and the operations and maintenance area, we significantly can grow what we do as GIS professionals to help the entire life cycle of an asset. So we'll look at this digital twin philosophy across this life cycle phase implementation. So if we look at it in 3 sections, we could say these are the three important divisions that take place in these major projects. You have a design digital twin, where you have your natural resources, your environmental taking place there, your initial site reviews, your design. You want to collaborate with your design and engineering teams, maintain your sustainability through there, track any issues that are taking place. But then when we get done with that design, like I said before, now we hand it over to the construction phase, where we have different stakeholders in there, where we have our daily environmental reports, we have our remediation teams, our safety, our actual construction teams, which helps us with our decision confidence, our communication and transparency. And then at the end of that, now we have this great wealth of information that we can hand back over to the owner operators, and that they can then use that for their operational digital twin, which can, then help them with their asset maintenance and the emissions and waste and infrastructure inspections, to help with their risk management, their process optimization, and their efficiencies. So that's sort of what that big picture looks like. So now what we want to do is look at the role of the GIS professional inside of there. So essentially there's 3 parts that take place, right? There's a system of record. That is the GIS system. That's your databases. That's how you get data in, get data out. And we have our GIS administrators and our DBAs handling that, make sure our system is up and running and communicating all the time. We have our system of insight. That's what a lot of people traditionally think of, the GIS scientists doing our analysis, doing our cartography. And then we have our GIS system of engagement, where we're actually setting up applications for the masses that are non-technical. So all the people that we need to feed this GIS information to, that essentially don't really want to learn BIM, they don't want to learn GIS, they have no dog in that fight. What they're really looking at is they want to be able to leverage the data that comes out of all of the different teams to be able to look at the health of the project. So then if we break that down, we say there's actually 2 sets of users inside of the AEC. And like I said, you could substitute AEC with any other industry. You have the GIS professional and you have the application end users. And the GIS professionals, while we're developing the data, putting the system up, developing the applications, we're essentially sharing that out to these masses of people, these external and internal teams on the project that help with the actual construction phases in the different important parts that need to take place, for your field inspections, your safety and compliance, your construction management. And like I said, most of those people don't know and don't really care about us as GIS professionals and this whole system and learning it. They want to be able to say, I expect to be able to look at my phone and be able to do what I need to do, collect my data in the field, have it go to the system, have it show up on a dashboard, understand what's taking place on my project in all of these different areas. So if we look at the implementation landscape, you could have a GIS team inside of the organization that's, maybe 5 to 10 people, and they're handling 10 to 20 projects, and those projects could have, anywhere from 10 people to 100 people. So you could say that, my GIS team of 10 is supplying critical information to hundreds of end users, application end users. And I think that's the value of GIS that's sort of been exponentiating over the last 5 to 10 years, is being able to get these external application end users in there to be part of what we do, and be able to supply them with the information. So how does it all fit together? So from the perspective that we look at this, we know that the ArcGIS system, Esri's internal tools, we have so many pieces inside of this palette, so many colors that we could choose to paint this picture. And what we're able to do is to make determinations project by project on which pieces or which colors we need to bring together to be able to do this. And the truth of the matter is, we're not always going to use the same tools on all of the projects. So project A, might use ArcGIS Hub and Experience Builder along with SiteScan. Project B might use SiteScan with Urban and ArcGIS Online. Project C might be ArcGIS Enterprise plus Web App Builder and ArcGIS Indoors. The idea as a GIS professional is to understand where those opportunities are, how to properly align the tools to be able to put together a successful project for all of those teams as they need to. And the reality of the situation is there's so many external tools, external systems that are important to, these project phases as well. So you can imagine that, AutoCAD or InfraWorks or Revit or, Powerline systems, all these other systems that we need to integrate with, the more external integrations that we get, the more powerful our system is going to be able to use Oracle, the P6 to be able to bring in your scheduling, or on the owner operator side to integrate with SAP and Maximo. The more integrations that we have, the stronger our system becomes altogether. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig into each one of these and hopefully develop some insight for you on these three phases of the digital twin. So the first part we're going to look at is the design digital twin. And so this aligns perfectly with the GeoBIM product that came out on October 4th. So it's a brand new product. And the bottom line of this is it connects directly cloud to cloud. So the ArcGIS cloud with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. In many situations, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is the home for the design portion of your project. So to be able to leverage directly back into that system helps us to be able to enable collaboration across teams and improve our project coordination. So we look at GeoBIM, like I said, to improve our project coordination and our delivery throughout the that design phase. I see GeoBIM as being able to expand so much further into the project delivery phase, and then eventually into the final operation stage. So it's the idea here is to deliver an innovative, easy to use, web-based experience for project teams to help with collaboration on their projects, to be able to bring their BIM in, to be able to tie directly to external documents in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And I think that's going to be very, very, very important. And I'll show a video in a couple of minutes to demonstrate this for you. But it's a major step forward. So the value of GeoBIM is to be able to give easy and immediate access to project information across systems and reduce data conversion, to be able to improve team collaboration by putting projects on the same map, and increase stakeholder transparency for these complex infrastructure projects. So I'm going to let my friend Anthony here take over for a couple of minutes and give you a little insight into the GeoBIM app experience.
What I wanted to share in this app experience view of GeoBIM is all the different levels of connection, not just across a single project, but a portfolio of projects. So let's start with this end user app experience within GeoBIM. Now, what you're seeing is a GeoBIM application. We're zooming into this map experience where we've automatically already created some polygon features that have been generated from model files stored on ACC or BIM 360. And so as you can see, as I select a polygon in the map view, there are links associated that open up on the right side within Autodesk Forge. And so these are those views into roadways designs or progress of the documentation. But being able to see the location of these documents and files as they're being generated and see the live up-to-date information on the right. Now, we're automatically generating these links to these polygons for users, but also doing it for issues too. So we're mapping out issues as points that connect back to the information stored within BIM 360 and ACC, but also have this ability to flip to a 3D version of the scene. So you can use both a map and a scene in this experience and be able to move around and see your projects within context and then dive into the details of each. So in this case, I can also link to a shell or a representation of what the conceptual element is going to be for this facility or building, in this case a hospital, and then open up the associated Revit model for that building and see the up-to-date progress, because we're making links that are dynamic and we'll show the most recent version within that linkable selection. And so I'm not limited to just one building. I've now moved into another building where we've actually created what we call in GIS a building scene layer, which is element for element GIS features for the building systems. And in this case, if I select a feature in that GIS view, it automatically opens up the highly detailed BIM model and takes me to that digital models element in the same place so I can verify documentation. And we could do that with IFCs, like in this case of the parking structure example, or we can make that same connection with utilities. So bringing in Civil 3D DWG pipe networks into and creating GIS symbols for 3D representations, we can also begin to make these links and connections. And so that way, yes, you have this representation in this realistic context that also takes you into the highly detailed modeling information, whether it's documentation or the features themselves that have been built into geometries. And of course, this extends to transportation, but also we can then move to another location altogether. So moving into another project development in our portfolio, I was previously in the Denver area and now I'm in Southern California. I haven't left my single app experience, but I'm now moving into this place where we're bringing in rich mesh data that's been generated from drone capture in SiteScan for ArcGIS, and then overlaying that with a polygon of a new development, and then being able to also incorporate some of that structural information and piping systems that are going to be intended to be built over time. But we can also connect that information to progress photos as the construction is being progressed through the schedule. And then ultimately even add in, as another aspect, reality capture meshes that bring in a mix of both our mesh data captured from drones, but then also overlay some of the systems directly in GIS that take you back to the rich BIM documentation that's been generated through that process. And so what I'm trying to provide for you is this really quick example of many of the ways that you can begin to quickly link and make connections between your data.
All right, so I hope that was that was a good look into it. So you could see on the, the left side of the screen is the ArcGIS environment, and it connects directly on the right side of the screen into the Autodesk Construction Cloud, into the actual Revit models, the BIM models, the Civil 3D drawings, connect directly to the PDF drawings or whatever else is tied to your data. So we're looking at this first release is really just the beginning. Initially, it's for ArcGIS Online. In 2022, it'll be released. We're hoping it'll be released for ArcGIS Enterprise. And then for there, we're going to, Autodesk Construction Cloud is the first integration. We're going to try and integrate alternate construction clouds as well as we move forward. So if we look at the vision of this, like I said, we could see some great things coming as GeoBIM matures moving forward. So, even being able to move outside of the design and then into the project delivery and asset management side of this as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into the construction digital twin side here. So essentially, we talked about the system of engagement. So we want to look at ArcGIS as a 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, whatever that you need for your project type of system of engagement to be able to bring into your viewport, into your user experience, not only your two-dimensional GIS data or your three-dimensional BIM data, but to be able to bring everything together in context, to be able to do your, your schedule monitoring, your risk monitoring, your cost monitoring, to be able to tie to your documents and as-builts, to be able to check on your site inspections and your progress. So I think that's pretty important. So now remember, we talked about all those different teams and all those different deliverables that went with it. And so what I put together here, as you'll see going forward, I put together an example of what a project delivery digital twin can look like inside of GIS. So what I did is I looked at our project management team in that window there. We're looking at everything, all of our data. And then we have our executive sponsors. They just want to know red, yellow, green. Are we doing good, bad, or how are we doing? Our environmental teams, real estate, all these different teams that have all these different applications, all these different dashboards to help monitor them. But then what we can do is then take all that information and then bring it together into a single viewport to be able to have this rich experience of all of the teams on your projects collectively or individually. So what I'm going to do here is say, so how do we do this? And what's it going to take? And how many developers do we need to do this? The answer is you already have all of the technology likely as part of what you're doing with GIS. So this is all completely out of the box. Nothing of what I'm showing or even what Anthony showed previously wasn't out of the box. There's zero coding, not one line involved to do any of this. So, it's really understand what you want to be able to demonstrate in your application and then work backwards from there. What do I need for schema? What do I need to set up for my domains and subtypes? What do I want my web map to look like? What do I want my dashboard to look like? And be able to put all of those pieces together and then bring them all together. So in this look, it's, I used a story map series, just one option. There's multiple options. This is another option here using Experience Builder. So you have a multi-page tab there to be able to look at your project. So, like I said, what I did is you can choose a multi-page template, or you can just start with a multi-page non-template and just, build it out as you need to. But like I said, it's a lot less effort than you would think to be able to bring all this together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I have a video here, a few minutes that I'm going to play to show you about bringing it all together in a project delivery digital twin. Like I said, this is an example of what's possible on a project. What we're going to do here is spend a couple of minutes and walk through an example of a project delivery dashboard where we can actually bring all of these pieces together, all of the different teams, all of the work that they're doing, all the different disciplines into a single dashboard that has, we have BIM data here. You can see we have parcel data. We have some CAD data here for utilities. We have inspection data for environmental and safety inspections, real estate access information, public interaction data. We're in a 3D environment here, so we have the ability to look at all the pieces and get an understanding of the health of our project and the progress of our project. For instance, point cloud data from reality capture can then compare the point cloud versus the BIM to get a realistic view of how the progress of the construction is going and if everything is appropriately in the right place or not. We can then say, okay, let's look at some of the environmental inspection data that took place here. And we can use all of this in context with, say, a whole campus or a corridor or a smart city to be able to say, you know, if we have more than one project going on, we have the ability to monitor all the projects from a dashboard. We can actually start to dig deeper and look at some KPIs on our safety observations and our field inspections. We can dig down deep into any piece of this as we need to get an understanding of what's going on inside of our project as far as safety observations go. We could then move over to our environmental inspections, the current status of them, how many inspections have been taking place, how many of those inspections are still open and need to be rectified. What does it look like overall for our approval versus rejected? Do any of them have elevated actions that go along with it? What is the inspection type that took place? We could then drill down and say, okay, within here, show me which one of these are urgent data, which inspectors are collecting what information. Next, we're going to take a look at our stakeholder management dashboard. This is where we monitor our acquisition status, our right of entry status, public outreach. Say on our project, we need to notify all of the homeowners within 1 mile of our project that we're going to do X, Y, or Z. Or we need to monitor our right of entry for each piece of property or right of way as we're going along. This gives us the ability through our stakeholder management teams to actually monitor our acquisition status, our title status, the market value of each piece of property, what we have access to, what we do not have access to, and be able to drill down into our information here to always be able to monitor and understand the status of our stakeholder interactions. Now we're going to take a look at monitoring a P6 construction schedule inside of ArcGIS. We have the ability to look at all of our tasks, identify any portions of it are at risk, what started late, what finished late, how our progress is going, how many tasks have started, how many are in progress, how many are completed. Take a look at the task category timeline and really be able to see what the health of our project actually is. From here, we're going to move over to the reality mesh timeline progress of the construction. So you can see we have a 3D environment here. We're using reality capture data where we might say send a drone out every couple of weeks or so to be able to capture the current condition of the site progress. Take that and look at it over time to see what the progress looks like as things are being constructed. And then with an understanding that, you know, in the end, you have information that you can get back to the build state, you know, different pieces of where the construction was at those individual times. From there, we could move to what we had talked about a little bit before is how does our project fit in with multiple other projects? So, you know, in a situation where we have a smart city with digital twins that are bringing together multiple models from multiple disciplines, you know, what our environment looks like. So whether it's a city, a campus, a corridor, to be able to go through it and take a look at what your current project looks like in conjunction with other projects that may or may not relate to it, to be able to get a look at electric infrastructure, some water and sewer and storm infrastructure. Show me what that looks like underground. To be able to get a good look at what these pipes look like in 3D from a full underground view. be able to say, okay, let's see what our electrical distribution system looks like in relation to our project. We can then from there move to other projects. In this case, we're looking at a light rail project that's taken place adjacent to our other project. And then within the community, we may have a transportation highway overpass project. We want to be able to look at the models that come from this. So we could be looking at CAD data, we could be looking at Civil 3D data, we could be looking at InfraWorks data, and be able to bring it all together into the GIS environment. Let's see what it looks like, from a surface view. In here, we can do all this in our 3D environment so that we have a good understanding of what our project and the other projects look like, all in a bigger picture profile. And I think that's important where we have these different disciplines. We could have multiple agencies, we can have multiple AEC firms, multiple inspection firms, multiple construction firms, but we can bring all of this data together into a single GIS environment and be able to leverage the progress or even the operations and maintenance of any of this information into a single dashboard. So to bring it all together, we can have a project delivery dashboard that takes into account all of the different pieces of software, all of the different disciplines that go along with it to be able to bring a project together. In this case, we have our master progress dashboard. We can be looking at our safety inspection and field inspection observations. We can be looking at our environmental inspections, stakeholder engagement for the project, reality time mesh, multi-project viewer, monitor our P6 construction schedule, document management, okay. All right. Can you hear me there, Joe? What we're going to do here is spend a couple. Look like it froze up there again.
I can hear you fine.
All right. Yeah, it froze up again at the end. But the idea there is that you can bring all of those teams and all the works of all of those teams together in a single interface experience there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly go through the operations digital twin to show you the possibilities there. So once everything is constructed and handed over, there's the ability there to build up the digital twin on the operations side. And that can help with, their urban planning. And like I said, the emissions and waste, the asset management, to be able to help with decision confidence and communication and efficiency. And in reality, to be able to, to do your management of your, say lease and asset management, internal services management, facilities and maintenance, your indoor space management, emergency evacuations, your live monitoring and censoring of the asset itself. So the way we look at this is that we at this point intend to build smart assets. So, several systems and processes in here to be able to do this across utilities, across municipalities, across campuses, to manage these built assets, to be able to provide optimal, efficient, continuous, and resilient delivery of the services, past, present, and future state. So when we have our smart assets plus our project delivery, that gives us these geo-enabled systems to be able to put these geo-enabled systems together into smart cities. So what are smart cities? It's the philosophy of bringing all of this built environment and behavior of it together to be able to help manage. So we can look at it, like I said, from the point of GIS to project delivery to smart assets to geo-enabled systems to digital twins up to smart cities. We can build the digital twin for your community operations a digital twin for your facilities operations, a digital twin for your utilities operations, and then bring those together into a smart city environment. So you could see how it's sort of, it builds up over time. And the reality of the situation is the technology and the abilities are rapidly expanding, interconnecting all these different systems and empowering the GIS professionals to lead the way into the future. So I think with that, that's all I have for my slides. And I think we have about 10 minutes left to see if anybody has any questions.
So questions, I think, are they coming, Samantha, through Q&A or?
Yes, so we have one here. Does this integrate with ArcGIS indoors?
Oh, that's actually a good question. We had that same question come up yesterday, as a matter of fact. So essentially the roadmap is that indoors will be an essential part. So the ability to host out indoors in a hosted environment, you could see that what we're doing is putting together different pieces of the puzzle. And if that piece of the puzzle is able to have its own environment that can be embedded, sort of iframed inside of one of these tabs, then that's a definite possibility going forward.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that was a really great integrative look at asset management. I don't see any other questions coming through at the moment. For people attending, if you want to go ahead and enter those, we have a few more minutes. Otherwise, Stephen and John, I think a lot of people like to come back to these as well throughout the presentation or after the conference. So definitely stay tuned in case people have more questions.
Yes, and if you've got any follow-up or questions, just reach out to your respective Esri account manager in the region and let us know, and we can then put our heads together and run to Stephen and other staff people at Esri to get your questions answered or do follow-up demonstrations or just any of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I know from my perspective, because I'm so excited to teach people about the possibilities of what we can do with bringing all these pieces together, that I threw a whole bunch of possibly, some concepts that you knew, some that you didn't. And then, hopefully you had a couple of, light bulb minutes. Went, oh, okay. That's the idea, is to say you have access to all these tools pretty much already. And it's really about the thought process to go behind the scenes and align this together. And, so like I said, I know there was a lot of concepts in there. So if there's any questions, even after this is over, feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you. One more question was, will the recording of this presentation be able for download for later review? So I think Stephen and John, if you don't mind a recording being posted, we can leave these up for people to peruse and think about those ideas more and then come back to you with more questions if they want.
Sure, yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
All right, well, thank you everyone. Thank you, Stephen and John. This great to have this session. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.